Good evening, Internet. This is Canadian Mano here, and I've got some special guests for tonight's discussion. Tonight's discussion will be on the skill level of players over the past few years, and the effects of a true skill system on modern gaming. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Gorillahands 4.
Hey, what's up? This is Low Blood Sugar, aka LBS.
And this is Warzhellion, aka Wars.
Good evening, gentlemen. Alright, I'll pose the first question for you, Gorillahands. How do you feel the skill level of players nowadays are compared to what they were before?
It's kind of tough to say, I guess, because there's so many more gamers out there, and the ability to utilize online multiplayer has grown so much since, when I was younger and I was playing with, my brother and my friends, like GoldenEye in the same room. You have access to a lot more gamers. So I guess some instances when you have so many different players out there, you get the good with the bad. It's really hard to get a gauge of the overall quality of players. I imagine some of the younger generations or that are growing up on Xbox Live or growing up playing shooters like that are probably going to be a little bit better in terms of the overall skill versus maybe somebody who grew up like Mario or something like that. But at the same time, at least when you look at something like Call of Duty, it doesn't really pair you up based on skill. So you can run into casual gamers and you can run into vets. So I would say younger generations probably, since they've been playing it a lot longer, or that's what they're used to, are getting a little better. But it's just kind of hard to say.
How about you, LBS?
Well, I think Gorilla made a great point when he talked about the number of gamers out there now, and it's increased tenfold since I first started gaming. And I think what we're seeing with that is two effects on what I guess you could consider the skill level of players that are out there. Number one, it's getting more watered down. So I don't think we've seen a decrease in players who are skilled. I think what we've seen is an increase of players who are casual gamers who, several years back wouldn't have put the money in to buy a gaming system or to go out and buy these games because, they're 50, 60 bucks a piece when they're new. And the other thing is, I think that the upper echelon, the top level of gamers, they're probably a lot better than they were a few years back, because at that time you did not have many people who put a lot of time and effort into gaming. It was something that seemed like as a hobby or for children, and after that nobody really put much focus on it. But now you've got people that grew up, a lot of us did that, grew up playing, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega, all the way up through now on Xbox. So I think that the skill level has probably increased if you took the best players from previous years versus the best players from more recent years. But I think that all of that's been watered down by the influx of people who just now look at gaming like a big hobby. And that's why I think it can seem like there's less skill out there today, but it's just because there's so many more people.
It's not that there's a lack of skill out there. There's a lot of skilled players. Unfortunately, the unskilled are in such depth that it's hard to find a skilled player anymore. There's so many people out there just starting gaming. You're getting your 12-year-olds to 16-year-olds who, they're running around with a .25 KD, and there's millions of them compared to maybe the few hundred truly skilled players.
How do you feel the effectiveness of it would be in modern gaming, like in Call of Duty or Battlefield, if they had a rigid true skill system as they do in Halo 3?
I don't know. I guess it depends on how many people are interested in it and how the system actually works. Because how do you determine true skill in something like Call of Duty? You can't really go based simply on something like score per minute, maybe TDM, because that dude could be going 25 and 20. They might have a crappy KD, but a high score per minute. You take into consideration win-loss, score per minute, KD, all those different factors together. I think, honestly, I know a lot of people have turned away from Call of Duty, at least people I play with, just because there is no competitive, nature to it. There's no way of matching up with people of similar skill. There's so many players out there, as LBS said, it's so watered down. You run into a lot of just random people, or even people that are on teams that just really aren't very good at the game, so it kind of ruins the overall fun. I think it could be positive, but at the same time, the only thing, or the biggest concern, would be fracturing the playlist. Dividing too many people up, how would you do it? Would you have a ranked domination and an unranked domination? What game modes would be considered ranked and unranked and stuff like that? Once you start to fracture the playlist too much, even with the player base as large as Call of Duty, you don't want to be sitting in lobbies for long periods of time trying to get the matches, similar to how Black Ops was when it was first released. And even like Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3, when they were first released, you just don't want kind of a similar scenario in which you're sitting in lobbies just trying to get into a match. I'd like to see it, but it just depends on how they set up the infrastructure.
How about you, LBS?
Well, I'll say I honestly don't have a lot of experience with anything that has a true skill system similar to Halo. But the way I look at things, and just from my broad experience, playing Call of Duty and various other games over the past few years, I don't think that a majority of the, I guess you could call them casual players, would really be interested in true skill. In some ways it could help them, but in other ways I think it would also hurt them, because I think a lot of people really have fun getting together with their buddies and going into Call of Duty and just decimating a team of randoms that have no cohesion and aren't as good as they are. I think that's why they play the game, and if you took that away from them, I don't think they would the game wouldn't have the longevity that it does now, and it wouldn't have the popularity. When you look at other games that have some sort of system like that, like even take Gears, and from what I understand, it's just a basic system mainly mapped off of win-loss. Even that can get you some uneven matches, even if it is a type of ranking system. It's going to be hard to get it figured out in a way that actually matches you on equal footing with other players. If everybody played solo, it'd be a different story, but if you're a bunch of solo players and you get grouped together on a team, chances are you can get beat by a full party if they go against you, regardless of the skill level involved, if it's even close. The communication is another factor. There's just so many factors in it. I think it would have a hard time working. In games like Halo, it works great because that's a game that people play mainly for the competition. But when you look at something like, say, Call of Duty or even Battlefield, they're more of casual games, and I think that would really drive away a lot of the people that play it if they implemented a true skill system. And like Gorilla pointed out, you could run risks of fracturing up the playlist and making it harder to find a game for a lot of people.
All right, Wars.
Yep. You know what? I'd have to agree to a point. I'd love to see some type of system put in. I mean, my team, the Cast, we actually won a domination game without getting any kills. Captured the point, and we did not fire one bullet. We won. When a game gets so watered down that we can do that, there's a problem. There has to be some type of footing they can get to even something out. Get some type of system in there that will allow groups like ours to be matched up with other groups. Halo 3 did it. They were pretty good with what they had done there. I liked Halo 3. I liked the way it was set up. The only thing I didn't like was the matchmaking, having to go back into a completely new match after every game. But beyond that, I think they did a good job, and I think they can implement some of their ideas into a Call of Duty system.
All right, those very good points. So in summary, we have that the skill level of players really hasn't decreased over the years. It's just the player base has increased by so much. We're seeing so many different skill levels, and a lot of them are just playing it for fun, versus some of us who play it always to win. And with the true skill system, some moderation has to be found between the two. In my opinion, the true skill would probably be detrimental to a modern game where it's watered down as much as it is, where everything you do is so easy and comes so naturally to everybody.
Well, I just think it's based on what you're trying to achieve with the game. If you want it to be competitive, you want a competitive audience, if you want a hardcore audience, I don't think a true system would hurt it at all, because that's what the people want. They want a competitive setup. So, I mean, people who are playing Halo and successful, I mean, they're enjoying, like, the MLG settings and the competitive settings. They don't seem to have any problems. In fact, the game seems to be doing very well because of it. But the other games, like you said, might have a problem. People, if they only made, like, a true skill system in it, that was the standard, then yeah, I could see that hurting. Although at the same time, if you're bad at the game and you continue to do bad, it's going to pair you up with other bad people. So yeah, I don't know. I don't see it being a huge problem. I just think it's dependent on what the demographic or what type of audience you're trying to target with your kind of game.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me in this discussion. I hope anybody who listens to this sort of takes something away, whether good, bad, or doesn't really care. And hopefully we'll talk to you again. All right, have a good night.
Take it easy, guys.
All right. Have a good evening.
Later, guys.